Well, good morning, everyone. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Later on today, you'll be hearing me on TheseChangingTimes.ning. Turtle Island News, we're broadcasting live. Good morning, everyone. And Wolfspirit Radio. Well, I hope you guys are finding today warm. It's still awfully chilly in Ontario. I looked at the news and decided, no, I really don't want to look at it, and I don't really care. So we will go back to the question I asked you last time. We need to understand the entities here to realize that the world is a lot more diverse than they are revealing to you. And we are not the only intelligent life form here by far. We just got a little bit of a high five from scientists all over the world. They are actually admitting that the electronic universe and that Saturn was our original sun. They're arguing, of course, with David Talbot about the timing, but after 10 years, he's finally getting a certain amount of high five, so that's awesome. At the end of this, and we are now at part 8 today. At the end of this, we'll be talking about Saturn and the cube, the Kappa, and all of these things that have been used to trap us, like the Rubik's Cube, like the box that we're put into, like the magic squares and things like that. Majority of this stuff, of course, was put forward by Madame Blavatsky, Modern Times. The majority of this is not before the 1800s, even though we've been told different. Now, I have one big example that I ended with last week, or Tuesday, as a matter of fact, when the United States went to the moon, which happened, although not when they filmed it, because of course they'd want to make sure that that would not be a live disaster on air. That makes sense to me. So the speech that was written for Neil Armstrong read like this: "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. What is the difference between man and mankind that they should have been separated at all?" Could they be possibly alluding to something here but another race, like we pointed out in Genesis before? Furthermore, what kind of man leaps? In the legend of Isis, is always with Anubis, a dog-faced god sent to be her protector. Nephis, Isis's sister, is said to be a female dog as well. What is also interesting about this tale was their strange relationships and relations with each other. It is said that Osiris mated with Nephis by accident, birthing Anubis. And how one mates by accident, I am still kind of putting my head around. Nephis was Isis' sister, thus connecting Isis to also being part dog, part serpent. The child between Osiris and Isis became Horus, horse, mane. Isis did not suckle this child, but instead allowed the child to suckle from Anubis, the dog. Isis relocated to Byblos and wept that she could not bring Osiris back to life after he was cut into 14 pieces by his brother Set, until a certain time, since the 14 pieces signified 14 phases of the strength of the moon. So as the story goes, it was during one of these crying sessions that a woman named Astarte appeared to her from the court of the god Es. Astarte is where we get the star word from. The arrangements between these beings have always been kept secret until now, not to mention the whole story in completely allegorical kind of form. The the Masonic tracing board at the top of the middle pillar sits a 7-pointed star known as the Star of the Pleiades, also called the Seven Sisters or the Seven Hathors. It becomes evident that there is actually a group of female spirits who are immortal, and they are enlisted by the god S, who has been attempting to steer the destiny of the human race. These women are better known as the Fates. Now, these Fates are key women who mated with Nephilim and produced the offspring of heroes and villains in various forms with various powers. Originally, the cult itself was under Apis, the bull. Thus, many of these women are depicted as cow goddesses. Later, that morphed into something entirely different, including them now being looked at as a spacefaring group of illuminating goddesses, rather than a cult that would sacrifice a bull while a Vestal version bathed in that blood. How soon they try to make us forget as old forms attempt to take on new ones, but we have records as the agents of the Most High will always dictate faithfully. Now, I don't have these new parts up. I will have them next time. Well, probably later today. Reason 100. The inside story here is the initiates were being betrayed by the goddess who sold them out to the serpent. As you can see by Masonic tracing boards, this all stems way back to Mars. There is no telling the extent of what is really going on, and what kind of trouble the elite have really gotten us into. Even worse, their code of silence keeps their lips sealed. Let us keep in mind, men cannot bring forth child, whether immaculate or through inseminations. Thus the creatures are part humanoid, resulted from the union of woman and various beings. It is no doubt that this was sometimes done by force. Alchemy was the title given to the art of blending elements. These elements were not always base chemicals. Many were organic. The blending of plants and animals to see the results was something of a religious science, it seems, in Atlantis. This is why many of the creatures have aquatic appendages, like the siren of Nilus, the goat with a almost fin, and many, many different examples of part human, part animal, part God. Reason 101, this may all seem a little weird now, because this part of our past has been placed in the dark for various reasons. However, the beings deified, meaning they were worshipped and are still alive today. Many creatures were part of that amphibian past beast with incredible spans of life and spiritual energy as well. The oceans right now are vast, unexplored territory. There are many things happening right now as we speak that we still can't explain. One could not amass the resources to attempt to find their kingdoms, and even if they did, they would probably never return the current level of human intelligence. There really is no reason for other life forms to take any interest in such an uneducated, limited species as we have become. The real mystery of Atlantis is the island was submersible. It never sank, and they still rule from below. Undersea, Davy Jones' locker, David and the Onis. Before we get back to serious business, I'm sorry I had to say it, I will say that the human has extreme potential. I will show you how clear that knowledge of who we are is being hidden. Even while reading this, I can feel the doubt of some people that can listen, but it will lessen, I think, as the realization sets in. This is also what symbols do on a very deep level. I've purposely embedded in this story with certain symbols that will allow you to remember who you are. Be sure to think of my definitions of remembering, which is reconnecting with various scattered members, as if you were also cut into 14 pieces and had to find all of them before becoming whole again. Smaller in number we are, but great in mind. Reason 102. From what I've studied thus far, it is highly possible for a company like Sony to make a game that would activate and balance your entire chakra system. All the while, you are trying to break your previous high score. It's that easy. They could be doing this. Your body has a system of various energy wheels. When they begin to oscillate, it is unexplainable the things that you can do. Laying crystals on chakra centers, going to sleep is another way to get the chakras at least cleared. This is a big difference between being cleared and activated chakras. When one chakra opens, even if it is the root chakra, it will be accompanied with paranormal activity and abilities. The system can be empowered up through breathing techniques such as whole body breathing. The chakras are the jewels encrusted inside our bodies. Once they begin to shine, a true splendor of the diamond body can be seen. There are certain abilities that come by default when the body is fully activated. They are make oneself small in an instant, become infinitely large at will, defy gravity with levitation field, touch any object at a distance, dive through solid ground like water, total control over the elements, create and destroy matter, instant materialization of thought. It's also clear why such abilities need correct training and also correct judgment on timing of when to bestow such gifts on a person. If this was the norm in society, we would be entirely a different race. Giving a person these abilities with the mentality that they have now developed due to the world's status quo would be a big problem. So this makes something of a catch-22, doesn't it? This is why one has to work on separating themselves from the normal mold of thought. Something is always watching and always guiding. The moment the student is ready, the master will appear. Few important facts about the binary star Sirius. Sirius is a white sun, many times bigger than our own sun. When looking at the size of Earth compared to many of the other planets, may be left with a almost dismal effect. Reason 103. Be sure to keep in mind Venus is an asteroid almost the size of Earth. Mars was 3 times larger than the Earth, and now this is all that remains. Amazingly, each human corresponds to some quasar or some star. When we see Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, all of these things are much bigger than us. Our sun, of course, we could all fit in there, every single one of the planets. Earth being on the scale with all the other planets, Polaris, Betelgeuse, we're pretty tiny. Now in Roman times, Sirius was known as the Red Star, and they sacrificed red dogs to that star. Sirius B contains an entire mass of our sun. In a globe only 4 times bigger than the Earth, Sirius B's surface is 3 times harder than a diamond, while the core is 3,000 times harder than a diamond. This planet makes 23 rotations on its axis per minute, thus generating a huge magnetic field of force. Every 50 years, Sirius A and B come so close together they begin to spiral around each other at enormous rates. Once huge tidal forces were generated by these 2 stars, they eventually flip-flop positions. This energy is eventually released to the flow of magnetic fields to the sun, which transmits it like a lens to all of the planets. Sirius B is far more massive out of the two. In Harry Potter, the evil character was Sirius Black, or Sirius B is introduced. Despite the Sirius plays the bad guy, one should not believe Harry and the rest of the witches and the warlocks are good. This is a game the elite play, and they love to play it. They make two sides that I like to call the bad and the worst. They make people choose. Either way they win, like Democrat and Republican. Earth cycles have been full of various creatures of different variety, as you have already seen. Some have died out, and only their spirit remains. Some have been hunted and killed for various reasons, and still others remain underground. The floods did from time to time wipe out many land mammals. However, aquatic beings such as amphibians have always survived. Thus, the oldest kingdoms remain under the oceans. The primary oceanic force to come forth was Atlantis. The species include that of the Ones, known as the fish gods. Onus was the father of Poseidon and Dagon. Many say he had 12 sons. These amphibians had at times war with the reptilians, and that is why throughout history it appears that the serpents are actually fighting each other. True, the serpents do at times quarrel amongst themselves with the survival of the fittest kind of dominion embedded in their cultures. However, they heavily quarrel with the amphibians, which all look the same to the commoner, I would imagine. Now, these things remain in our societies, at least they're images of that. The reason 104, the Onus god of the sea, who connects with all the aquatic creatures, the dolphins, the whales, the octopus, etc. Dagon, the son of Onus, I also have pictured here. The fish being the reason why the Pope wears the fish hat. They worship Dagon and various others. Now remember, pantheism is the belief and worship of more than one god. A hidden mystery is the Holy See, S-E-E, too. They are referring to the sea in which the Ones arose from. In addition, Caesar means sea. Snake, too. Tsar, where we later get the word Tsar from. The mother of the king, Dagobert, was said to be raped by Dagon while taking a swim in the sea. His name means priest king of the house of fish. This is the beginning of the Merovingian bloodlines. The Mar is the root word of many things such as mermaid. Mer, also a special light they called Meropis, also connected to Mount Meru. Again, Mer. This is how they control you in the Matrix, by illusion, an elusive content that cannot be reversed unless you are aware of it. This is the doctrine of the Holy See. The soul is seen as a fish, Isham, out of the water, when it enters the earth, the material square. The instant the mother's water breaks, her cargo descends the birth, can be spelled two ways, canal. There is a dock on hand to take the delivery. Once the baby is under the earth's jurisdiction of Mary, time law, as opposed to natural law. These are the laws of the Matrix one must abide by. A certificate of birth, or manifest, is written itemizing the condition of the specifics of the the cargo. The baby or the vessel is given an SS number. then granted privilege to go ashore. If it gets in trouble, the accursed soul finds itself in court, once again standing on the dock or the docket. The soul is considered dead while traveling the sea in the earthly container. It is a ship in a bottle seeking the dock that will allow it to unload the cargo, the human biological transformation apparatus, and re-enter the cosmic ocean. If all doesn't seem fishy to you, just keep listening, and it will eventually. Now, to perceive in all of this that one human has value without personally doing spiritual work is a drastic mistake in proportion to the size. The current theme is that we are all connected and that the human is very valuable to the future of the universe because of that connection. It would be better to perceive in this way: we are all connected to something. How that something affects the complete system is what's of value, meaning we are just one screw in the device, or that we are the generator. Surely we can lose screws and replace them easily, but the generator is another matter. What part we will play will be determined by whether we educate ourselves to the highest potential possible to reach our full magnitude, to gain the choice that exists beyond the influence of such large celestial bodies in space and the diabolical fiends of this earth. This is called the Great Reward. The fleur-de-lis, which is one of the most popular symbols of today, has many meanings, as you can see in the dogan and its crown. First, it symbolizes the 3 pieces of holy wood of the cross. This is the deepest meaning. Apparently the tree of life was actually a real tree, and pieces of it were taken about throughout history by important persons until finally they crucified Jesus on it. The tree had more meaning than Jesus in Gnostic sense, as Jesus' twin sister, Magdalene, would carry the bloodline and birth a future Antichrist. This lineage has birthed a succession of Antichrist and Christ personages throughout history. To have an Antichrist, you must first have a Christ, so they created both. Symbolically, the tree is also the tree which is the trinity of the triangle, or the top of the pyramid. The cornerstone the builders rejected, which is Masonic jargon again. Reason 105. And these pictures will be up again later. On the left you will see Jesus is using the holy wood to heal. The holy wood. And on the right you will see Thoth building energy with rods, transferring that energy through the Ankh, which is again another piece of holy wood, Hollywood. Later, I'm going to tell you a story that barely survives written. Should I say it was actually carved in 1483, before the King James Bible was written in 1611. It reveals the true origin of Christ and the cross, lest they continue to lie and deny it altogether, and have us all confused in the lake of fire, with them groping about, wishing a drop of water would be given to cool the tongue. The latest ploy is Jesus had a cousin named, guess what, Jesus, also who is from Gamala, and he was an impostor, not the real Jesus. They shall continue to create more and more explanations until every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess Jesus is the Lord. There is no way a story could survive for thousands of years with the exact description of what occurred. It is a fact that the story of the Savior, created through Immaculate Conception, along with special healing powers who dies and is resurrected is shared by Krishna, Hindu Sakti, Tammuz, Hesus, Adonis, Eclelius, Attis, Crite, Eo, Indira, Achilles, Bali, Mithra, Quetzalcoatl, Quirinus, Tullus, and Vitoba. Be not unwise, and believe all these figures were attempting to imitate Christ. Christ was accepting and attempting, perhaps, to initiate them. Reason 106. The letter that looks like an F with no cross is actually an S. So this reads, Seth buries Adam and puts 3 seeds of the tree of life under his tongue. S is an F. You will see 3 trees springing up, and later Moses, actually Mophis at the time, later it was changed to an S, always has 3 rods with him, always, in the ancient ones. If you notice closer, Moses is always given horns. Priest of Moses is also given horns, and these are horned gods. Maphis, Moses, dripping rods of water of Merib, sweetens them. And again, I will show you many, many pictures of rods healing the sick, or the fic at the time. Deeper hidden meaning behind these statements is revolting, I guess, as this Talmud, when referring to the Goyim as non-Jews, or non-Jews. Rods turn 3 black men into 3 white men later on, believe it or not. You see David building a wall, around him a miraculous tree. Queen of Sheba tells Solomon the holy nature of wood. You will see wood can also be looked at as a wand with special powers. Many miracles that Moses and Jesus performed were with wood. Moses carried a staff in one of the greatest battles of all time. No one talks about that, where, Moses throws down a staff, and then, so there's 3, again, wise men, that are sitting in Pharaoh's court, and they throw down sticks too, because I guess everyone can just do that. Which is pretty cool, but no one seemed to freak out about that, because, everyone can just do that, and we're okay with that. Solomon orders trees to be cut down and brought into his temple. So these holy woods happen all the time. Holy wood is made of, it's called crafts or crofts. Jews bury holy wood, again, Hollywood, used later. St. Helen gives a portion of crofts to Constantine. The crofts, again, crofts or crafts, is a piece of the wood, supposedly from Jesus' cross or holy wood. Wood was rediscovered, again, later, and brought out. And I'm not saying any of this is actually from the cross of Jesus. What I think is more important here is your belief, people's belief in these things. That gives the wood power. Although it looks like staffs were always used in ancient pictures that we've seen and talked about, there's always a staff of some kind, whether or not it's the staff we use with the intertwining snakes, it's supposed to be healing, or a staff of some kind that kings and queens use. There's a staff and a crown. So the next reason, I only took time to place these woodcuts here because they're on the verge of being lost. The origin remains in British museums, so you will see these pictures later, and I want you guys to take a look at them before they just disappear altogether. Now, the story concludes with a piece of wood being taken to Rome and used for magical purposes. All those in possession of the wood became world leaders. The last Tsar, of Russia, had a piece of the wood in his ring. This is true. This is Aaron's staff that budded, the staff that turned into a snake and swallowed that of the Egyptian snakes. Again, because everyone could just freaking do that. Symbolically, the story is all about the tree of life, which made men magicians and gave them supreme dominance, connecting their lineage right back to Seth. Either way. You can also see the four beasts surround Christ again, and the four is again a trap on the cross in the final cut. INRA, igna, natural, renovrutia, integra. And you will see many of the ancient figures in their times with a cross and being nailed to a cross. Reason 107, as you will see by 3 artifacts depicting the arrival of Jesus, the story of the crucified divine Savior on a cross is nothing new. Even the picture, which you'll see later, seems to look like the exact depiction of Jesus on the cross. It is actually Osiris, conscribed way, way before Jesus on the cross. Every era has been accompanied by a crucified Savior story. There is no use in reinventing the wheel, since it serves to disarm the people, making them believers of something that is coming to save them and wash away all their sins. This is also in all the stories. Your sins, and again, sin just means, it's an archery term, it means you've missed the target. That's all. Your sins and your wrongdoings are your own past. Get over them. Balance them out in your present deeds. Nothing or no one can do this for you. Adults are behaving as children with such naive beliefs. And people will soon see where all this leads and who these men really are. Again, the fleur-de-lis is also a symbol of exotic blue lily. This flower grew out of the marshes of the Nile. The Kemits, Egyptians, were masters of chemistry, where we get that word, and alchemy, just a branch of that word. This is the core religion of the priest. Chem is where the word divides from. In fact, the Egyptians have extensive knowledge about minerals, plants, animals, this meaning of each side of the triangle. A little digging uncovered that during the initiation rites, the Kemits would procure concentrated doses of blue lily and administer it to the initiates. Now, we have found in the last couple of years that the blue lily was also mixed with cocaine. The only way they got cocaine is if they were on ships and going to South America. Only way, because cocaine does not grow in Egypt, nor in Africa, not anywhere. So, they would place a vibrational rod, or commonly called an ankh, against the back of the initiate's neck to transfer the vibration. After this, the initiate would be led to the inner chambers of the Great Pyramid. Each room carried a particular frequency that would prepare the body to go into an astral death state. Much like when people talk about ayahuasca. Now that's not to make you high. It's supposed to introduce you to death. So you cross into the other worlds and see what's there. It's not just for fun. Now finally, they would be placed in the sarcophagus. Depending on the initiation, his or her soul would descend to the underworld, Mars or Sirius, due to the 0-point field in the Great Pyramid, lined up with the Van Allen belt on 6 major ley lines. And if you go back, I think, to part 3, you will see the ley lines all over the world, and there's a lot that link up there in Egypt and another place lower in Africa. Now, in that moment, they would meet the Lord Dog of the underworld, Anubis, Beel, and all the others surrounded by hounds of hell. Believe it or not, many other goons like Ra hanging out in another world of Dar, which is where we get the word dark from, Dar. The fleur-de-lis is also the symbol of the jester's hat, or simply the trickster or the magician who concocts magic and illusions. Just as you see, the 3 wise men came from the east, also known as the Magi. You will begin to see, although it is profusely banned in the Bible for all others, oftentimes people who are in the grace of God are affiliated and acclimatized with magic. Always. Even though it's pretty much forbidden in the 3 great works. All the 3 books say, you shall not use magic, you should not suffer a witch, basically. And in all 3 books, these people come. It goes further to admit that Moses himself was schooled in the wisdom of the Egyptians. Even in Egypt, even in their legends, there are stories of other men parting large bodies of water, because apparently people could just do that, just to find jewels at the time, and that had been accidentally dropped in the sea by the women who were rowing the boats. Janus and Jabez had no problem duplicating Moses' magic. When it came to turning the staff into a serpent, his magic seemed to be a little more powerful. These acts are also symbolic, but are mistakenly taken literally. It also mentions that Dathan, a well-known name in adept circles, connected to also the Nephilim. Dathan was later changed to Daman. In the Bible, it says that Dathan, who caused the Hebrews to make a calf again. This is true that the Nephilim have enticed men to do foolish things, like worshipping a staff. Of course, it also has far-reaching issues that affect spirit. But let us consider what this means on a basic level. How much time will one waste, and how dense will it eventually make them if they consider their ultimate god a calf, and they turn around and eat it? The true meaning of the word magi is lost at times in modern pronunciation. It was originally pronounced magis, like maggot, the larva of a fly. Maggot is also known as mage, magi, magician, gave themselves this name because they worshipped Beelzebub, the lord of the flies, better known as Baal or Baal. Many names like Baal, Jehovah, and Moses are titles, and not actual names of individuals. They form a collective energy. Those who followed a certain god would change their name, their personal name, thus joining themselves to the god. Ezekiel and Daniel were both servants of El, while Isaiah and Nehemiah were example of the people who served Ea, also called Jah. Jah. That's where we get that in Rastafarian. Jah. Many of these names were connected to the same Godhead, though. And I have pictures of the jester and things like that you could look at. Reason 108. The mage and the jester always played an important part in the king's revelry. Always. As it was their responsibility to keep the king entertained. This is why we have mages and jesters being our stars now. They keep the king entertained and informed of all things of the spirit nature. That is what entertainment is supposed to be. That is a magician. That is a magi. Eventually, the king would be hypnotized by the magician. Thus, the magician was always the real king. It was never the king. It was the magi. It was the magician. It was the jester. You make someone laugh. There are many tales all over the world. Do you make someone laugh? You own them. You entertain someone. You are now the king. In this picture that you'll see a magician standing behind the king with the jester at his side. If you have looked at tarot cards, the magician and the joker, which we've kept in our regular cards today. We've kept them, not because we play with them much, but because they're two of the most important. The magician can be the jester, and back and forth, but they are always the king, and more important than the king. The beings of the underworld are the overseers of the Illuminate, and they give all the orders as being part of the hidden hand. It is understood that a person will never disavow, because these beings are capable of hyperdimensional travel, shape-shifting, etc. Once the predestined time has elapsed, the initiate is resuscitated by the Kemetan adepts, and that was the beginning of an introduction to the higher degrees. And you will see, when you look at my pictures of the Great Pyramid, the King's Chamber, the southern shaft, the second door, the mystery chambers, the first door, all of these things are a hyperdimensional tunnel. This is a place that had energy, and all pyramids all over the world work the exact same way. Reason 109. The pyramids are constructed to produce a zero-point field. What you see above ground is duplicated exactly below ground, giving the entire shape a diamond, or Platohedron, I think it's called. The lowest point of the pyramid is also called Amati, or the underground, the underworld. These pyramids also link up to the plateau on Mars, creating the gates for hyperdimensional travel through a series of wormholes. This is speculation, but if you look at the ancient Zulu texts and the writings, and have heard Credo Matawa, it's still in their mythology that they came from Mars. And they still paint a red symbol on their shields. And the shape of it is interesting, because there's a shape of that on one of the, I think it's Phobos, one of the moons. Anyway, if you came to these areas in the old days and asked for Moses, they would probably laugh at you because of how many were initiated in the art of being a Moses, like Tutmosis III. Same thing was true with the title Jesus, which was an entire Egyptian mystery school connection with the Nazarites. Looking for Jesus in those times, you would turn up various characters with magical powers. Even in the Bible, Jesus himself runs across another man named Bar Jesus, the magician. Even Jesus warns, when he leaves, another will come with the exact same name as him, saying, he is him, but do not go and see him. Jesus alternates with this rogue character that doesn't even want to get crucified, as seen in the Garden of Gethsemane. I think it's because these are two different guys. And there could be many, many Jesuses at the time, since Jesus was a title. And as a matter of fact, there was no letter J until the 1600s, so there was no J anything. There wasn't. There was an E, there was an I, there was no J anywhere in the world. Anyway, there's no limit to the pretenders of the old days, attempting to create some new religion to find worshippers, just like gurus do now, and servants for their gods, where the gurus become more important than the gods because they're trying to represent the god of whoever it is they were looking at that time. Now, some are far more convincing than others. Many of the schools connected under lunar and solar brotherhoods share common gods, goals, and ghouls. See how these names are the same. Others were in direct opposition, wanting to create their own religion to harvest members, at least for monetary purposes. Many times spreading of a new religion came down to the purse, the money issues, which took more members to increase, of course. The scriptures say the serpent took a third of the host of heaven, and they fell to earth. If you see how numerous the stars are, which all correspond to living entities. You begin to realize how many of them are here, and they never tire in fooling men and women into worshipping them. This one story of the serpent, which survives within the stars as a star chart, will reveal Alpha Draconis, one female dragon, wrapped around 1/3 of the stars, including our pole star Polaris. It is said this begins the importance of the number 33, or a third. Old tales from England concluded that if you had to defeat the dragon, if you wanted to exit this universe, because it guarded the pole star, which corresponds to the exit and the entrance points of our immediate solar system. Later, it was found by Western thinkers through Hitler's paranormal division and the woman I've told you about, Madame Blavatsky's meetings with the dark Tibetans, that the stars also corresponded to actual places on the Earth. The pole star was thus in Antarctica. An opening was found there that led to a jump gate with various uses, especially instantaneous travel throughout the planet through wormholes. I'm saying this as fact because so many stories do actually back up Blavatsky's story on this one. The majority of her stories can't be backed up at all. But it goes back to Agartha, the inner earth, all of these places, and these stories are talked about all the time. Now, reason 110. The pole star has actually been mapped in ancient times. And if you go to turtleislandnews.info, you will see ancient maps from so long ago they don't even have dates, of planets and inner earth and jump gates and things like that. They knew about these things. Even Iran is called the Temple of the Gates. Many people think that's why it was bombed. And, we're talking about ancient and Babylon, and we were talking about Tower of Babel. That was all there, although they were told not to bomb it. And what did they steal? First thing, they didn't find military buildings. They didn't immediately go and look for weapons of mass destruction. They went into the museum and looted it. And from people that were on the ground at the time, they talked about very well-dressed men who were very trained and went for specific things. Now, the earth contains various entrances that may have been held in that library. The other ones are probably under the Vatican. We'll never see them. In other places, these natural wormholes have been located. Again, still serve as gates and portals, and these are in the myths everywhere. The 33 parallel, located at 33 degrees longitude, planet Earth, has been the main spot of esoteric activity. Roswell crash began. The alien phenomena was mapped on the 33rd parallel. Nazareth, birthplace of Jesus, 33rd parallel. Nagasaki, 33rd parallel. Babylon, modern-day Iraq, 33rd parallel. The Mother Lodge of American Freemasonry lies on 33rd parallel. Bill Clinton was born in Hope, a town on the 33 parallel. U.S. Highway 666 is on the 33rd parallel. No-fly zone for Baghdad was on the 33rd parallel. Sidon, the seat of time on Earth, and the temples of Baal, Bek, are located on 33rd parallel. The White House is on the 33rd parallel. Twin Towers fell exactly 33 years after the groundbreaking ceremony, 1966. Samson and Jesus both died, 33. Number 3 was sacred to the Egyptians. And in the code, there is also another form of S. 3 plus 3 is 6, 6S, which is also the letter G. Notice the similarity in the black letter Luke, Luinda, and Algerian, is also 6. This, of course, has another hidden meaning, of course, to the G in Masonry, beyond geometry and generation. Much of this will make a lot more sense if it doesn't already. When we get further along, you'll begin to see the matrix fall everywhere, right in front of your face. These things have been used just right in front of us. Now a map, which I have shown you before, but I will put up again. Reason 111. The use of sacred geometry has profound effects when it comes to binding and controlling regions. This is why the box is so much used. This is why we play with Rubik's Cubes. It's why we play with Sudoku. It's why they want us to. These number games in a box. They want to keep us in a box. That's why we're buried in a box. Now, there is perfect relation in color, shape, sound, and number. If we were taught only these things and not the garbage of the curriculum, interesting name there, we would all be extremely intelligent and gifted in a high degree. The elite have taken this knowledge, used it against us, unless we begin to have a firm grasp on how all of this works at some point in the near future. The positive will eventually have no face or risk being wiped out by the negative. In true reason, one does not assume good will always triumph. They morph into a role of good and ensure that they will have to put in motion some type of true energy to bring that idea about. We should always ask ourselves, did we do our best? The answer to that should be based on a point in life when you already know that you have done your best. That's called a point of reference. And it is of great value in all of your meditations and when you judge yourself. A hierarchy system exists amongst these beings, just as one was set up in our military, except much more animated, I guess. Demigods like Beelzebub, Baphomet, Quetzalcoatl have their own followers, although they answer to something even lower than them, not higher. Their job is to gather the people any way they can, and dividing the power goes on in the darkness where you cannot see it. As they often tell you, this world is more of an illusion until you wake up to what's going on. We're going to take a little break, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Tracey Kennedy, live on Wolfspirit Radio, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and turtleislandnews.info, and thesechangingtimes.me. Now, as we continue on, all of these demigods, I guess, have their own job. To gather people any way they can, dividing the power that goes on in the darkness where you cannot see. As they often tell you, this world is more of an illusion until you wake up and see what's really going on. Many of the beings are responsible for creating this so-called illusion, or the Maya. The play on words here is obvious. For example, Illuminati, illusion, ill, illegal, pill, kill. In time, I will show you how they are all related and who is the culprit behind such illiterate treachery. It would suffice it to say now that it is very ill, as you see by the words and its uses to express itself. The world's largest pharmacy is Lilly, so illy. Reason 112. The Illuminati is actually an Italian word. The organization, founded by Marcius, Isabella, Adolo, Bandini, Pallavisi, there are still the Ordinati, Intrepidi, Urosidi, the Achaemenid of Esquina, the Infecondi, the Occulti, the Deboloi, Immobili, Regelu, Linux, Arcadia, Liger Asa, to name a few. Many of these groups make Illuminati look like YMCA. Last time we checked, they had thousands of members. The underworld has remained cloaked, and many things you will never see and will never know, especially if you don't enhance your spiritual position. When these groups illuminate, they embrace themselves with the strongest of the archons, such as Baphomet, Temple, Mohammed. Some will ask, why all this to take the soul? I will say, chess does not begin with checkmate. It begins with a procedure. Consider this. Every pawn has the opportunity, no matter how slim it may be, to make it to the other side of the board, where it can become any piece it wants. All around you are pawns who don't know they are pawns, thus make illegal moves, imagining they are knights or even queens. Your current world is run in a 64-bit hypercube designed by a hybrid queen, Hydrus, that reside in Hyperborea. This is the Matrix. And you say you can handle the truth? The word Maya actually meant to divide or to split in two first, then occurs in its modern meaning of illusion, which happens after the former takes place. In the ancient books it states the division was about cutting us off from our other side, which included our right brain, our other soul called Ba, and our contact with the other world, where the closest parallel is known as our doppelganger, or where our double exists. This world I speak of is actually the world that presides and precedes this one in time, because time does not exist there. Many people believe reptilian Anunnaki upgraded us. In all actuality, if anything happened, it was a downgrade, deactivating our pineal gland, genetically inserting and activating some lower reptilian portion of our brain that's attached to ceremony. There has been a large amount of research on the reptilian portion of our brain. It makes us think of survival, food, clothes, shelter, basic instincts here. Begins to deactivate much of the more creative human portion of the brain that conceives daily life and turns it into art and feeling and creativity and expression. When you can operate in both worlds, you can move things around because time does not exist in other worlds like it does here. When you come back into this world, things manifest immediately, which is called keeping a foot in both worlds, as was done in all Egyptian art and older African art. This world can be naturally reached through the dream state if there isn't too many nets and webs that one's astral body gets entangled in when they go to sleep, thus keeping them from traveling beyond the immediate globe of influence. This is why the Maya, depicted in 2012 as being the end of the illusion, because all of this world would be found out, that the gig would be up. Well, we are seeing many things happen. Certainly not an end. If anything, we are seeing the rats scurrying around, doing as much filth as they possibly can, as if they're in a hurry and panicking, as rats will. Reason 113. The Maya, more correctly known as Maya, which is one of the 7 sisters in the Pleiades, did much of the ley line work for the serpents. Other tribes like the Aztecs, Yucatan, Toltec, Incas, Zacacans, Peruvians, Araucanians built pyramids and other structures on ley lines and began human and child sacrifice by instruction of the perceived masters. See, when we talk about the stories of aliens coming to Earth, they always start with we are given some sort of gift. And it doesn't have to be the aliens. It could be some new god. It could be actually when you go to conquer anyone. First it's a gift. Then it's the plague blankets. Then it's the human sacrifice. Then it's the running and the screaming. People tend to forget that the Maya also predicted their own destruction 500 years before it happened. This occurred because they were taught to believe in destiny so much that they could not avoid it. The sheer fact that destiny has a tiny at the end of it turns me off. This word is too small for me to dissect. Our future should never be associated as such. It's despicable, this kind of degrading. Their extensive knowledge of time was given to them by the serpent. This is mainly evident because it wasn't even a time chart for Earth's possessions, but it was for Sirius's processions. They were often seen in sculptures and pictures bowing to these serpents who gave them this faulty system of time. Let us think clearly. The one who gave us time was the culprit known as the Watcher or the Watch. Just as a timepiece, this is another name for the Nephilim. This is another name for Saturn, the god of time, the Time Lord. We find lots of hope. Also, in indigenous tribes, many of whom have unlocked the ability to disappear totally from a reality in a blink of an eye, which can be done when groups of people get together and pool all of their energy into a collective, thus creating a gate to other worlds within a collective mind of the group. When we work together, we are much stronger. Reason 114. The Maya long count calendar functioned as a clock of universal time of Earth's evolutionary development based on the energies of Sirius, Sothos. As you will see later, we will see on the right, a watchmaker obviously knew this because it is exactly what the inside of a watch looks like when you look at Sirius. So I take this moment to elaborate on the damage of the split mind. First, with the mind split, there will always be some type of internal duality within the individual, a constant pulling from one side to the other depending upon what time of season it is. This duality was remarked by the ancients as the two horses pulling your chariot, as seen on the number 7 tarot cards. The strength. Unless you could get them to run together, they will go in separate directions, eventually ripping you in two. This other side has a lot to do with being complete in our thinking. It is given a term masculine or feminine depending on your sex. There is no space to elaborate on what is masculine and what is truly feminine because of the complexity of the individual creation. But there are a couple things here of value to consider. Reason 115. The chariot is a body comprising of two different sides that are like the energy, negative, positive, just like a battery. When the sides are balanced, progress is made. When one side is unbalanced, there will be no movement, as one side will always pull or drain the other. As far as the first card and all the symbolism is indoctrination, the 8-pointed star of Elu, the Sphinx, the square, the Egyptian solar disk, the crescent moons. These things are in all of the cards. Feminine energy is intuitive, while masculine energy is analytical power of reason and strength. Women say men need to be more sensitive to their surroundings in order to get them in tune, which is true. There is seldom any response by men on what women get to do. This is what I've learned. If we sense all the time without analyzing, we will just go with the flow of life. That current flow of life in our present world condition is actually going in the opposite direction of progress. It is headed towards decay and said running and screaming, as anything material will. It just is. And this is something that has happened before. It is also true that when we become too analytical, all we have is mountains of data that are not attached to feeling, thus the higher senses cannot be activated, so there can be no true power to do anything about your findings, especially when it comes to divining the real truth or the root of the problem, what is going on in your even individual life, so it can be adjusted properly, so you have a stable foundation. For males, it is of value to know females make up at least 50% more paranormal contact than males. One reason is these beings can communicate with women better than men because they possess a womb, which is a soul matrix. Fluid is highly magnetic, and as any yoga can tell you, there's an actual brain tissue around the stomach region. In the short stomach area, the keeper of this chi force power is where it is harnessed, stored. Women have a high generative cycle of this metallic fluid, menstrual blood or plasma, which is also high energy substance. This was known by the Knights Templar as sangral. Believe it or not, we were told that they would drink it. I'm not sure if that's what they actually meant, but in the rituals of the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, the Magdalena. Unfortunately, this results also in more women being used to harness the dark powers without questioning whether or not it's okay, because they just go with the flow. As the New Age women develops more analysis, she will again deal with the heavy blow to the wicked one, who is no match for the fury of a woman, but is ever seeking to use her powers and her prowess, and we will see how women have been used. Now, reason 116, this type of propaganda that is being directed at young women so they could imagine witchcraft is a coven of women sticking together. Turn on the TV for 5 minutes and see how many things are about that. In all actuality, it is a place under the service and the spells of the horned gods. This reflects in how women's body are desecrated and disrespected in these cults. They are also called the corn gods, which is a term coined in Egypt, where the entire economy was based on corn at times. So, as you watch the Orn continue, it is obviously wicked, like we talked about with the or you have the words like torn, porn, mourn, warn, etc., all indicating a culprit here once more. And men are no better. I'm not picking sides, and I told you I touch on everybody and everything. Without feminine side, they personally see to the physical result of this spiritual practice, if it be any. In order to believe, they must see it. Due to many practicing for personal gain, they only engage in the arts that produce fast and vivid results. This form of magic is dangerous, as it is not graceful energy, but a magic based on receiving, not giving. Thus various pacts are formed by men with lesser spirits whose presence can be felt easier because they are dense and slow moving. Vibrations, chaos magic. This is called the gambling of the soul, which is why gambling is forbidden by wise men. Even the numbers on the roulette table added up equals 666. What gambling does is it allows a person to jump to a higher phase in this material world without any preparation. If a person has had bad habits and they happen to strike it rich, the latter condition is far worse than the former. They now have the money to feed every corrupt desire. It's why we hear so many stories that end up horrible about people winning the lottery and have no preparation from ever having money. It doesn't usually end up happy. Reason 117. The Baphomet, the horned god of Mendes. When inverting the pentagram, this being and legions of others are invoked. As you will see with the propaganda above, witches and warlocks use both sides of the pentagram, and both sides bring about various energies we will call negative feminine and negative masculine. These are extremely unbalanced, distorted energies. The flute in the hand of Sothis is the same as the flute Pan, another horned goat god, often seen with. Now these personalities. How about the balance? Balance comes into play when you are open to the emotional, sensual side of the world, thus giving you extra perception, while your analytical mind is able to place in its proper category due to the previous experience and research. These two become perfect self-sustained match, being capable of handling energies in the proper way, expelling darkness and elaborating on the true light. It is also of value to realize that to become a teacher you will need both of these in order to deal with the two states of mind, if you expect to mend them at all. I will also remark that masculine and feminine personalities are not limited to any particular sex. You will find many individuals with a mix and a match of these traits, and it will be your task, if you choose it, to replace what is missing, like a surgeon. With that being said, do make a mental note that Sir, S-I-R, which is a title given to a member of High Court, and S-U-R, normally used at root of words like surgeon, along with S-E-R, as in serpent, S-A-R, as in Sargon, S-O-R, as in sorcerer, all are head of the serpent terms, meaning that this is common acronym they refer to themselves by on this dimension. Also keep in mind that most surgeons have no idea of the root of the word, nor do they care. The caduceus is only hint at times that they get the whole medical institution is none other than a lab belonging to the hybrid serpents set up by various manipulations of the human body, such as vaccines. This also gives us better resolve about choosing proper companion. There is seldom a bigger hindrance when you are first on the levels of the path that the unsignificant other. Many times two people have paired up for a prolonged period and are now only together because of the amount of time they have been with each other. I overheard one person say, "Well, we have been together for 6 years and I owe it to try and make it work. When leaving this earth, there will be just you, unless your mate is on the exact same frequency. Of course, in this life, we desire to find compatible partners. However, if we are personally just beginning to learn the truth of things, how in the heck can we expect our old selves to choose anything good or balanced for us?" So I'm able to sum up the whole relationship paradigm with this mode of thought. If he or she is concerned about their soul and its growth, then there is a chance the relationship will work. They are not concerned when the other conscious party will be assuredly be dragged down. This will come about oftentimes not in the intent of the idle individual, but rather the things they engage in. For example, if you are cleansing your mind and your body, seeking more clarity, and a mate comes home after being in a bar for hours, they are actually carrying a great deal of negative energy. When you share a bed with them, you are even more vulnerable than they are, since they as a vessel no longer matter to the spirits. It is your fresh energy the spirits want. They already had the other individual. Even deeper than this, as long as you are yoked to them, you are not only carrying them, but also the load that each of you acquire through life along with yourself. So in short, if a person does not care about their soul, which is of higher value, how can they care about you? And although they may appear to be something there, it is not complete, thus it will falter at a certain point. Be assured when you need it most. The weak link on the chain only breaks when extreme pressure is applied. This is the danger of illusion. Many people are pretending, and this makes them very unstable in key areas here. One of the main tactics of the deceiver is to match you, the seeker, with an unbalanced mate that may only have an exterior show of compatibility. This is why lustful pictures, flirtatious men and women, risky scenes, various types of propaganda are all put in place to distract the seeker, convince them first to try to find the eternal happiness outside themselves, which will never be possible. Of course, you attract what you are. So if you are incomplete but searching, you will attract another incomplete person that is also searching. Thus the blind follow the blind until they fall into a pit. This magician or magi, who I call the wizards, who worship the lizards, collaborated against men and women a long time ago in exchange for individual favoritism. The pact simply reads that in 6 lives they will reign over man and woman and will make up the group we call the elite. Those who are closer to the top of the pyramid generally are pure bloodlines that have remained the same since the first intermingling. This is the holy blood, or the holy grail. They maintain a constant link with the collective hive mind. Those further down the pyramid, and degrees after initiation, sometimes realize the horrible truth, which is they do not have to do these deities' bidding in this life, but they also belong to them in lower dimensions, a maddening reality that consumes from within. Many may say they would never make such an agreement. However, they just have never been presented with such a deal. They should be ashamed of what the result may be. Imagine how many of today's youth will do anything just become a star in Hollywood. It is of value to understand that the elite do not need a person to join their team. They have a waiting list. Also, you do well to remember that although you would never do it, there's always some Joe Smo around the corner who may be a little down on his luck. And he will. Till a person knows what's fully going on every day, they subconsciously make an agreement also to align with negative forces. There is no neutral gray area. Everything must stay in motion. These people are also, and often used unknowingly, but are just as effectively, and there's no shame in it. person can be used and manipulated in various ways till they take back control of their life. Which comes first in facing what's going on. Let's look at Britney Spears. Let's look at T-Pain. Again, reason 118. Again, there's no opportunity and there's no limit to how many people will join the Illuminati circus. They are given just the chance. As I said before, once you are in the know, you will see it everywhere. Imagine these two artists both released CDs related to the circus, the home of the animist. One is womanizer, clearly a term that should not be respected, and yet thousands of women bought the CD on its release. T-Pain, whose name is enough of an explanation, shows 33 on its cover. Of course, a wonderful little skull. All this is looked over by the fan, who just wants to hear the tunes. Pan and his flute win again. All this for a reason. Stay alert. These are the entertainers. These are the magi, musicians. These are the jesters. Since this matrix is based on colors, shapes, numbers, you have an opportunity to view the program. Thousands, if not millions, faced heavy levels of mind control in the 80s and 90s by just leaving their TV on after the last show, falling asleep for a good 3 hours of low vibrational frequency, which was the prolonged sound you would hear before the station went off air. It's of value at this point to point out the elites are not ignorant. Doomed, possibly, but not ignorant. They have been here for eons and carry the wisdom of eons, and many, in exchange for that wisdom, have already sold their very soul. Reason 119. Max Headroom aired sometime in the 80s. You guys remember that? Few remember this show. However, so much mind control went across every episode with the shapes and the colors and the designs of the background, along with Max's frequency-enhanced voice. There's no telling how extensive the programming could have been. Coding like this has everything to do with why people are clueless to reality. As you see with words like sly, slick, sneaky, sick, seduce, slain, and way too many to itemize here. All these words have one thing in common. They begin with S. So now you are beginning to learn about the symbols of the English language. In the English language there are words that are kept as triggers to use by the elite. Words that are laden with S's always tend to be bad news, like possession, Hitler's SS, and men like Haley Selassie, Samuel, Saturn, Satan, Shamus, Santa, Sanadana, Sodom, etc. We call what belongs to us our possessions. Although this word has dual meanings, as many words do, possession means also to have something that is taking you over, thus changing your character. We find this true with rock and rap CDs, horror movies, violent videos, games, risque clothing, weapons, idols, and many other things that really possess a person, which makes it of value to rid yourself of these things because they are carrying negative energy. Reason 120. Idols have always been a problem throughout time. No matter what one may think of an idol represents some true origin of many idols are unknown by the possessor. Let's be honest here. Think of this. If statues and depictions of Jesus and Mary used in Christianity are of Anglo descent, but Jesus was supposed to be Hebrew, And there's a passage in the Bible that says his hair was like wool. Who do you think they are renditions of? We know for a fact that the image of the little sandy-haired, green, grayish-eyed one is Caesar Borgia, slaughterer, mass murderer, involved in incest. If you pray to that Jesus, what are you bringing to yourselves? Do you think it matters, though? Like, in addition to the subconscious mind can sustain heavy altering when put to the extent of placing objects or subjects of belief, deliverance, and assistance into an inanimate object. That is my thing. You are giving that object power. It doesn't matter what it looks like. If you worship it, it becomes strong. And it becomes a trap. It becomes a possession. With me? So at this point, some may say the word thing may be a little too excessive. As things speed up, there will be much more addressed with the words as the story unfolds here. You must know how to piece it all together, and this makes it easier to explain to all the people you will have to tell. After you are finished listening to me, and maybe listen again, it will unlock even more things you did not see before or hear before. When they teach you to write in school, they call it learning to spell. This word spell cannot be confused with anything else besides a magical incantation, which is what it means. To go further, to show no coincidence is being made here, they go on to teach you how to write in cursive, which is the root word of curse. Cursive. In writing, I can leave no moments to think that this is pretty profound. What are we instructed to do from the time we enter grade school is to become little dark magicians, along with a little help from people like Disney, Alice in Wonderland, Fantasia, Enchanted. And a lot of their movies are scary. Remember Bambi? The first scene, you get to watch the mother deer, the doe, die. So, reason 121. The illuminist Walt Disney introduced the young mind to a world of magic and strange characters and implied pedophilia. Movies like Alice in Wonderland had entirely different meanings. Seeing movies like Angels in the Outfield, analyzed by film expert Leonard Honor on YouTube, revealed the profound amounts of pedophilia there. It is clear Disney and his group of dark magicians are out to hurt the children, introduce dark magic into the household, bring about continued plan of population mind control. Keep your kids away from Disney. Just as we face children in constant array of sick, suggestive media indoctrination, the new generation faces hybrid versions of the same thing. Parents are unknowingly opening the gates of negative forces to children at an early age. It may be fun to watch the baby dance to your favorite hip-hop song, rock song, but what is actually doing to such an innocent, unprotected mind, especially since it is not condoned but promoted by the only person the child may know as a guide at such a young age? Now, I'm not saying this needs to change. I believe it is too late for that. Most children now run their parents, not the other way around. What I'm bringing to light here is that the results of such things, like I said before, the hybrid version of indoctrination wants more than just the innocent body. It wants the soul. Many parents are responsible for delivering it to the deity on a silver saucer, because they themselves are under the same illusions. Look at Pan's labyrinth. Pan, the pedophile. And Persephone. Focus your energy on a special purpose and it will become powerful. These are the movies that have come out. Reason 122. The original story of Pan's labyrinth in dark esoteric works is that of Pan molesting little girls placed in his labyrinth by sadistic worshippers. The story gets a rendition, some graphical enhancements of course, then comes out in theaters and wins tons of awards. Once again, the ills have fooled thousands into loving their sworn enemy. You have learned enough about deities now to understand this card of Persephone, used in a children's game that's out right now, actually encourages a young girl to evoke the Dark Queen, damned to the underworld. That's Persephone. People are still acting like none of this is going on. Many are sitting back watching the children get hurt and won't lift a finger. It's amazing. I've received ridicule a lot going on this path. I do it for everybody's children too. Indeed, the weight here is heavy, lifting the world and Atlas. So it is written, so let it be done. On sluggish strength we have. We have little sign amongst those I share thoughts with, which is when we crack into something, because the code is constantly revealing more stuff, new stuff. We often put our hand very close to our faces. That is where all the information is hidden, right in front of our faces. Of course, being that would be the last place you'd ever look for it, right? As you see, the Great Pyramids are 4-sided pyramids, not 3. If you notice, everything around you is such as doors, and windows, and rooms, work cubicles have all adapted the floor, 2-sided, 8-sided, 3D, cuboid shape or box. There are certain words I call power words. Like instead of going backwards, we should be going forwards. But what are these 4 words? The 4 words that gave us foreknowledge. Foreknowledge. We are even told that our ancestors, our forefathers, made history. The Tetragrammaton, or Grammaton, Yahweh, which is a Hebrew word that contains as a root too many esoteric names such as Jehovah, and Yahweh, consists of only 4 words. As we continue to see, there's nothing, or well, there is something diabolical going on here with the 4, as I started with, which is the sacred geometry. It's a 2-dimensional square, 4-dimensional cube, 8-dimensional octagon. This is how the worlds connect. All words like Dionysus, Dios, Diana, diamond, die, divide, diabolical, Diablo, are all intertwined and related. With a story in antiquity, the D itself, in English language, is a symbol of a circle divided in 2. If you open the breaker box right now and look at the manufacturer of the breaker, you will see the company Square D. The logo is a D inside a square. They control everything related to power, as will be shown. The esoteric Masonic studies are focused on what they called the squaring the circle. Since all organic life contains no straight lines, it is always curved and circular. This is an art of trapping organic life and holding them in various forms of stasis. Trapping natural organic matter like me and you, in inorganic cubes, like cubicles we are sent to work in every day, and the houses we are given to live in, or sometimes foolishly build ourselves in the wrong designs. Putting ourselves into cubes, calling them home, this is another fine example of subtle programming. They are masters of the 2D primitive world of matter, which is black and white, no color. This black in white checkered pattern is one of their signs. Not by accident, of course. Never by accident. We are trapped by these things. Now reason. 123. This is what is hidden. And as what is hidden comes into plain view, you will see there's signs everywhere. They own huge companies, such as the checkered cab of New York. It makes the sign of an L as the owl, the sacred bird of Isis, also in pictures. Some are still human, some are just not. However we face them, their plan is almost complete. Even Sir Winston Churchill was in it. But that should not surprise you. Their magic is that of mastering the cube as the world is treated as a giant chessboard. They also master knowing how to move about the square without getting caught in the web. Have you ever seen a spider get trapped in its own web? All of the pyramids at one point in history were connected, and they had functioning capstones on top. Not to mention the pyramids were coated with a substance that was washed away during the last flood. The substance allowed these great structures to reflect the sun's energy, giving them the ability to become larger solar panels, generating various energies depending on the timing. In deeper writings it states that the gods would land their ships on top of these structures. They would serve as charging stations. Those traveling the desert could navigate their way by the shining light of the Great Pyramid, which could be seen for thousands of miles. The much older Hindu Puranas and Vedas describe detailed accounts of ships used by hyperdimensional beings. When the gods visited Earth, they would arrive in large ships, which were in written accounts as large as flying beasts, because they made such a monstrous noise. Maybe talked about that, obviously. Probably sound of, I don't know, engines anyway. They would set themselves up in temples men had built for them, lounge and get served. This is one of the earlier versions of the Matrix that was washed away by the last Aquarian flood. It seems that the destruction and the chaos of these Aquarian ages are not limited just to the unsuspecting people, but often the deities themselves get destroyed by forces of nature. When I say false, I don't mean they didn't exist, I mean they lie. And what they say is false. In a not true because they never make good in their word. And this is how the whole cosmic clock is tuned. Right at the time things are about to reach critical mass and all hope is vanished. Right at the time people think there isn't even a Most High. Right at the time deities, people, beings, and every created thing is in motion. A click happens that expands or contracts the experience. It's up to you to choose. The Egyptians admitted that there was a Most High, greater than the gods, but because they had not made contact with it, or perhaps with the electronic universe, the Saturn theory, the great God went away, and terrible things started to happen. But probably because there are some sort of dominant attitudes here, they chose to obey the entities that came in, that we're already familiar with, and they are called familiar spirits, the familiars. These are used all over the world. Now it does become clear with the sign of Aquarius that the water bearer dumps a bucket of water on the earth, thus cleansing the earth from its current pesky inhabitants and getting prepared for the next edition. The Great Pyramid itself in Egypt said to have 18 inches of special coating washed away. Many people look at the pharaohs of Egypt and try to grasp how such an ancient culture was so far advanced. You will also see how feline, which is a sphinx, plays an important role. But, we have to guess at what the face actually was. The body could be cat-like. It could also be a dog. It's looking more like a dog to me because of the long body. But, it could be either way. If it is a lioness, the sign of the lioness is used in modern symbolism. It relates to a ruling monarch. Female, fertility, feline, feminine, all begin with "fee" for a reason. And as you see in the crest of England, the ruling power personifies itself as a lion. It can also be mapped in the cosmos by the constellation Leo. Females were hidden by direct order. Female role remained hidden and protected, or simply put, veiled. Now, as seen in Egyptology, the Egyptian female goddess Mat was the third eye of all Egyptian gods, known as Wadjet. This means that the eye on the top of the pyramid is actually the eye of Ma'at. They keep the female sphinx in front of all their main lodges for the protection against various spiritual forces that the elite are at war with. Or they could be using us as a sacrifice, but we'll go into that next Tuesday. Egyptians are kept large amounts of cats in their temples. Cats carry a lot of prana. They are very sensitive to other life forms. They are known to contain astral spirit that can be trained. You will be delighted to find out it gives you energy and power and strength to know that this is none other than one of Ma's tricks, or simply the matrix that we are caught up in. The Egyptian worshipped matter as a primal cause. The word for matter comes from the word mat. So does ours. The Atlanteans perfected the ability to take matter, which is flesh-formed, and fashioned it into the human body, take a soul and animate the body with soul. The matter was the creation. The soul was, of course, the creation of the Most High. To this, they would pull souls from the lower dimensions, other worlds, wherever they get souls from, I don't know. Finding souls was like mining for gold. And this is why so many of the fake scholars say they came here to mine for gold. They came here to mine for us. And they want that hidden. The whole art is called necromancy. Thus one cannot simply die and think it is over. They must somehow bypass reincarnation, which is always considered a curse, as if you had been netted like a fish and pulled back into the planet or the planned net. Cloning makes it possible to make the body. Necromancy makes it possible to animate the body with a spirit. This is the other vibration of the Philosopher's Stone, which the alchemist used his body to test, as a test subject. He would then add more elements, forces, spirits to his own body to enhance his abilities. If the alchemist did not have the correct formula of how to control the matter, while the process was, taking, would result in his own death or complete possession. And that, my friends, is the alchemical key. You can trace the recent use of this soul tampering to the Sumerian Anunnaki, as we were told, as they were supposed to be the creators of men and women, and created us to be slaves. True story is the Danu, also known as Tuatha De Danu, the tribe of Dan, the Danites, who were known to be giants, did discover the secret to DNA. Dan. The oldest Celtic doctrines speak of Danu and some of their origin, in which they are clearly part of the Atlantean Club, which explains how they also had knowledge of how to alter humans. They are also simply known as An. The A in the English language is the symbol of Atlantis, omitting the crossing of the A. The crossing makes it a pyramid with a capstone. It's normally written to look like an upside down V, which is simply 5. Mary's mother was named Anne. She also carried the lineage of the bloodline, so they could erect a world savior that all would eventually bow to, no matter how many they needed to create. This was going on at least since the Mithras. It had taken a very long time. Now we will start next Tuesday, with Reason 124. Please join me next Tuesday from 12 to 2 Eastern Standard Time, and I will be on Turtle Island News, These Changing Times, Wolfspirit Radio, and Freedom Slips Radio, Revolution Radio. Thank you very much for listening. If you guys have any questions, please email me. You can reach me at t_Kennedy@rogers.com, or drop me an email at turtleislandnews.info. I will have these up for you later on today. Thank you very much for listening. We are all listener supportive, and first of the month again, so if you have a few coins, we could always use it. For the archives, and I've been asked, now you go to the archive page, they are all on Wolfspirit Radio, and my name can be found on the right hand side of the archive page. It does cost $5 a month, but that helps us all out so we don't have to beg all the time. I hate doing that. Did you guys hate it? So I hope you enjoyed this. I will go into the chat rooms later and say thank you and my hellos. And I think we're almost done. I'll play a little bit of music for you, and love you guys and leave you, and see you on Tuesday.